It's a well-known fact that Manchester United are up for sale, with the current owners keen to actually cash out on a club that they've owned for more than nearly 2 decades at this point. But the recent favourites to actually invest in and buy the club has caught everyone by surprise, and that's because it's being linked to Qatar ownership. Now, doubtless you'd be thinking, wait, Qatar already owns Paris Saint-Germain, so why exactly would they be interested in a stake in Manchester United? Plus, there are rules in place to actually prohibit such kind of multi-ownership, particularly in European competitions. But as we're going to find out in this particular video, there is in fact a way that Qatar can own both Manchester United and PSG and even have them play in the Champions League up against one another if the need so arises. How exactly is that the case? Well, we'll answer that question in due course, but first it's important to note what exactly the situation is as things stand. Now, as things stand, the club is owned by, of course, the Glazer family, who, remember, inherited it from their own father. And recently there has been a lot of talk that the American owners are looking to sell. And now there have been rumors, and very credible rumors, that Qatar themselves are looking to invest in the club. In fact, they're not just looking to invest only in Manchester United, they've been linked to a host of clubs, including Liverpool as well as Tottenham Hotspur. There's also another person, however, who's in the fray for a chance at potentially buying Manchester United, and that is the company Ineos, which is owned by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Now, don't forget, Ratcliffe previously wanted to try and buy Chelsea, but couldn't quite get the funds together for that because he wanted a consortium. But Ratcliffe is keen to own United due to one very simple fact: he's a lifelong Manchester United fan. That being said, can Ratcliffe and any consortium match the money that Qatar could actually throw at Manchester United if it so comes down to that? More importantly, would it even actually be allowed? Well, that's what we'll be talking at first. Now, first off, it is worth noting that when it comes to multi-ownership or one particular party owning multiple clubs in and around Europe, the rule is that if one party has 2 clubs, then they can't be playing against each other in European competitions, which is their way of ensuring that such ownership doesn't in fact happen. Qatar, or rather Qatar Sports International, which is the one of the arms of the Qatari kingdom, currently owns the entirety of Paris Saint-Germain. So obviously, that's what you'd be thinking, that, you know, the same entity, so QSI, can't really bid for Manchester United. And technically, I don't think that would be the way Qatar would approach this bid if it so really came down to it. Why is that the case? Because Qatar Sports International is in itself an arm of the Qatar international. It's part of the financial arm or the sovereign fund of the Qatar kingdom. So there are many arms, and that includes the likes of the Qatar National Bank, among others. And potentially, if it really comes down to it, even though all of them would be getting their wealth from the exact same source, Qatar could simply use a different owner to bid for Manchester United and say that, look, they're 2 different owners, so technically it's not the same person, and they could actually be playing up against each other in European competitions. What's more, there is actually precedent for that, and despite this there are other ways that they can come about that loophole. First off, QSI can in fact take a minority stake in Manchester United. That is allowed. There are, of course, cases of that happening in and around, because even PSG themselves own a small portion of another club in Italy, but because it's a minority stake, it's allowed. However, the kind of money and the kind of numbers that has been floating around the United bid makes it very clear that it won't be a minority stake. So, in that case, a different entity, as I was pointing out earlier, can actually make the bid for Manchester United, and then they would, at least technically, pass the test of not being owned by the exact same, person or organization, and therefore, they can actually, the ownership would be allowed according to UEFA rules. What's more, even if it really comes down to it that the QSI themselves invest, there is precedent for 2 clubs who are owned by the same entity actually playing against each other in the Champions League. That has been shown by Red Bull, because again, Red Bull owns RB Leipzig, which operates out of Germany. They also operate RB Salzburg, which of course operates out of Austria. Both of those clubs once may manage to qualify for the Champions League in the exact same season, but UEFA actually did an investigation and found that despite both of them being owned by the same company, the way their organization was run, the kind of people they had in power was very different, and so they were allowed to actually take part in the Champions League. So there is precedent. So even in the worst case, if UEFA says Qatar says that, look, we're going to have the same arm own both clubs, there is precedence of such a thing happening. So if any of you, and if you're a United fan and you are anti the club being owned by, say, Qatar or any of the Middle Eastern powers, because that has become a problem area in the world of football, if you're thinking that UEFA rules could save you, then, well, UEFA rules actually can be bent. And to make things worse, Nasser Al Khalifi, the man who's heading up the Paris Saint-Germain project, is very, very comfortably embedded into the European elite of football. In fact, PSG are in the good graces of UEFA for the very simple reason that they did not back the failed European Super League project. So who's to say a rule relaxation or write-off altogether won't come in place that allows Qatar to own both Manchester United and Paris Saint-Germain? It sounds like a dream reality on paper, but what actually transpires would be very, very different and would doubtless raise a lot more questions about sports washing and same entities owning multiple clubs, and thus further compromising the sporting integrity of this game that we love so much. That, though, is a matter for another time, and it's just how I feel about things. What do you guys think? Would you welcome Qatari ownership at Manchester United, or would you prefer a different owner to take charge? You can let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon so you know when we're going live or uploading a new video, and also don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Last but not least, don't forget to download the AajTak app. Thank you all once again for joining us. If you're on the channel right now, do check out some other videos we've done. For now, though, goodbye.